How could Clint Eastwood sleep with 8 actors a night? Clint Eastwood. For decades, he's been the epitome of rugged, independent masculinity, a living legend whose public persona is as solid and unyielding as the characters he portrays. But what if the silence hid a truth so complex, so astonishing, that it seems to defy belief? What if the private life of this legendary figure was a labyrinth of connections, a web of relationships so intricate it makes even the most dramatic Hollywood plots pale in comparison? Prepare to journey into the hidden history, the complex emotional landscape, of a man whose private world was far more populated and unpredictable than his legendary public image suggested. The secrets behind the shocking headline begin to unfold now. Born in 1930, Clint Eastwood's path to becoming a global icon was anything but instantaneous. His early years in Hollywood were marked by bit parts and struggling to get noticed. He was tall, lean, and possessed a quiet intensity, but he didn't fit the mold of the typical leading man of the era. His break came not in America, but in Italy, with director Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy. As the man with no name, Eastwood perfected the stoic, minimalist hero, a figure defined by action, not words, whose moral code was ambiguous but compelling. This role was a revelation, launching him to international fame. He brought that same laconic cool back to the States, most notably as Inspector Dirty Harry Callahan, a character who further solidified his image as the tough, rule-bending individualist. These roles resonated deeply with audiences, cementing his status as a symbol of strength and independence. As his acting career soared, Eastwood also transitioned into directing, where he found even greater critical acclaim and creative control. Films like Play Misty for Me, High Plains Drifter, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Unforgiven, and $1 Million Baby showcased a mastery of storytelling and a consistent, often dark, thematic exploration of violence, morality, and the human condition. Throughout this remarkable career, Eastwood cultivated a public image that was private, almost remote. He rarely discussed his personal life in detail, preferring to keep the focus on his work. This reticence added to his mystique, portraying him as a man comfortable in his own company, self-contained, the real-life embodiment of his solitary on-screen heroes. This carefully maintained distance from the public eye concerning his private affairs would, ironically, make the later revelations about his personal life all the more astonishing, creating a stark contrast between the public myth and the intricate reality. Even before the most sensational rumors took hold, Clint Eastwood's personal life was known within Hollywood and hinted at in the media as being complex and, at times, unconventional. His long and successful career ran parallel to a series of significant, romantic relationships that often intertwined in ways that defied traditional norms. His first marriage was to Maggie Johnson, whom he married in 1953, years before his rise to major fame. This marriage lasted for approximately 30 years, a significant span that covered the entirety of his spaghetti western breakthrough and much of his evolution into a major American star and budding director. However, even within the confines of this long-term marriage, Eastwood's personal life was reportedly not strictly monogamous. There were rumors, and later confirmations, of relationships with other women during this period. This era also saw the beginning of a pattern that would become a defining characteristic of his personal life, having children with different women across various relationships, sometimes while still married or involved with someone else. While married to Maggie Johnson, he fathered a daughter, Kimber, with a woman named Roxanne Tunis. This fact, though not widely publicized at the time, later emerged, adding a layer of complexity to the public perception of his marital life. Following his separation from Maggie Johnson, he entered into another long-term, highly public relationship with actress Sandra Locke. This relationship, which began on the set of The Outlaw Josie Wales in 1976 while he was still married to Maggie, lasted for 14 years and involved numerous on-screen collaborations. It was a significant partnership, both personally and professionally, but one that also reportedly involved other relationships on Eastwood's part during its duration, and ended in a tumultuous, public lawsuit filed by Locke. This known history, a long first marriage marked by outside relationships and a child born outside the marriage, followed by a lengthy partnership that began while he was still married and reportedly also involved other connections, established a public perception of Eastwood's romantic life as being far from straightforward. It suggested a pattern of multiple, sometimes overlapping, relationships with various women over many years. This inherent complexity, the presence of numerous significant partners in his life, and the fact that he often worked closely with beautiful and talented actresses, created fertile ground for speculation and, eventually, the germination of the most outlandish rumors about his romantic pursuits. It led to the sensational questions, the whispered stories, and the headline that seems too wild to believe. How could he possibly, and what is the truth behind that shocking number? Now, we attempt to solve this mystery by looking at the actual history of relationships that defines the personal life of the man known as King Eastwood. The backdrop to Eastwood's personal life is, of course, his immense fame and power. As a top-tier actor and later, one of Hollywood's most respected and powerful directors, he inhabited a world where opportunities for relationships were abundant, and the allure of his stoic, powerful image held significant appeal for many. His status undoubtedly gave him access and attracted attention, but the pattern of his relationships seems to be rooted more deeply in his own personality and choices than simply the opportunities presented by fame. His public persona was often one of controlled emotion and independence, but his private life, as it emerged, painted a picture of a man who, while perhaps valuing his freedom, also sought connection, albeit often in ways that deviated from traditional expectations. Let's examine the documented history of his significant romantic relationships, understanding that the reality is one of multiple long-term partnerships and children with different women, stretching across decades rather than a single night of extraordinary activity. As touched upon, his first marriage to Maggie Johnson lasted a considerable time, from 1953 to 1984. However, during this period, Eastwood was reportedly involved in other relationships. The most notable early example that links directly to the entertainment industry is his relationship with Roxanne Tunis. Roxanne Tunis was a stunt woman and actress who worked in Hollywood. Eastwood's relationship with her reportedly began in the 1960s and lasted for several years, during his marriage to Maggie Johnson. This relationship resulted in the birth of his daughter Kimber in 1964. This fact alone demonstrates a pattern of engaging in significant relationships and even starting families outside the bounds of his marriage, involving someone directly connected to the film world. This wasn't an actor in the leading sense, but it was someone working right there in the industry alongside him. This kind of revelation, a child born outside of his long marriage, was exactly the type of information that would fuel gossip and contribute to a reputation for a complex, non-monogamous personal life. The relationship with Sandra Locke further cemented this image and, crucially, involved a prominent actress. Their relationship began in 1976 on the set of The Outlawed Josie Wales. At this time, Eastwood was still married to Maggie Johnson, although reportedly separated. The relationship with Locke became serious and public, lasting for 14 years. Sandra Locke was not just a casual acquaintance. She was a talented actress who co-starred with Eastwood in 6 films during their partnership. Their professional lives were deeply intertwined with their personal ones. This long-term relationship with a fellow actor, which began while he was still married to someone else, and reportedly involved other relationships on his part during its lengthy duration, was widely known and highly scrutinized. Its dramatic and public end in 1989, including a palimony lawsuit filed by Locke against Eastwood, only amplified the public perception of his complex and tumultuous romantic history, firmly linking his personal life with a significant figure from the acting world. and highlighting a pattern that involved overlapping commitments. Following the end of the relationship with Sandra Locke and his divorce from Maggie Johnson, Eastwood entered into another significant long-term relationship with Jocelyn Reeves, a flight attendant. While not an actress, this relationship resulted in the birth of 2 children, Scott Eastwood and Catherine Eastwood. Scott Eastwood has since become a well-known actor himself, continuing the family's connection to the industry. The timing of these births is also notable, as Scott was born 3 years before his relationship with Sandra Locke ended, indicating a degree of overlap or transition between long-term partners. This further reinforced the public's understanding of his life as involving multiple relationships and families existing concurrently or in close succession. Next came a relationship with actress Frances Fisher, which began in the early 1990s. Fisher co-starred with Eastwood in his Oscar-winning film Unforgiven 1992. Their relationship resulted in the birth of their daughter, Francesca Eastwood, who is also an actress. This is another direct link between his significant relationships and the acting profession, a partnership with a talented actress who became the mother of one of his children, born from a relationship that began while working together. His second marriage was to Dina Ruiz, a television news reporter. They married in 1996 when Eastwood was 66 and Ruiz was 31. They had a daughter, Morgan Eastwood. Dina Ruiz later pursued acting and appeared in a reality television series about her life and family. So, while primarily a journalist, she also had connections to the entertainment industry. This marriage lasted for 18 years, ending in divorce in 2014. In addition to these well-documented long-term relationships and the mothers of his children, there have been reports and rumors of other shorter relationships throughout his career, sometimes with women in the industry. While less central to the narrative of his children, these contribute to the overall picture of a man who has had a multitude of romantic partners over a very long span of time. The private labyrinth of Clint Eastwood's relationships did not remain entirely hidden forever. Over time, pieces of the puzzle began to surface, often through the painful process of divorce proceedings, palimony lawsuits, most notably from Sandra Locke, which laid bare aspects of his personal conduct and relationships during their time together, or when individuals, like his children born outside marriage, came forward or were publicly acknowledged, sometimes as adults seeking connection. Biographies, both authorized and unauthorized, attempted to piece together the intricate timeline and the various connections, revealing the full, surprising extent of the complexity to a public that had largely accepted the more private image. The sheer number of individuals involved and the overlapping nature of the relationships challenged the prevailing public perception of the reserved star. Eastwood's reaction to these revelations typically mirrored his public persona, guarded, minimal, and often delivered through legal channels or brief, clipped statements issued by representatives. He rarely engaged in public explanations or displays of emotion regarding the intricacies of his personal life, maintaining a sense of stoic privacy even when faced with glaring public scrutiny and the need to address the existence of previously unknown family members. This response, while consistent with his brand, sometimes left those involved feeling unheard or further marginalized, adding to the narrative of a man who kept his emotional world tightly controlled and preferred to handle personal matters outside the glare of public discussion, even when they became unavoidable headlines. The impact on his career and public image was surprisingly muted. Unlike many stars whose careers were derailed by scandal, Eastwood's professional life largely endured, perhaps a testament to the public's separation of the artist from the man, or perhaps a grudging acceptance of his nonconformist nature. His image as a powerful, independent figure seemed, for many, capable of absorbing the revelations about his complex personal life without significant damage to his box office appeal or critical respect. While some perceived a disconnect or even hypocrisy, for many fans, the myth of the self-reliant icon remained intact. perhaps even enhanced by the very real-life complexity that underscored his detachment from conventional norms. His ability to compartmentalize his public and private worlds was so profound that even when the private world leaked into the public persona remained remarkably resilient, leaving the complex personal history as a fascinating, if sometimes unsettling, footnote to his legendary career. Now in his 90s, Clint Eastwood remains remarkably active as a director and sometimes actor, displaying a work ethic and creative drive that few can match. He has directed critically acclaimed films well into his later years, adding to his already immense legacy. His personal life in recent years has been less public, though reports indicate he has been in long-term relationships following his divorce from Dina Ruiz in 2014. His children, many of whom are now adults, have built their own lives and careers, with several, like Scott and Francesca Eastwood, finding success in the acting world, continuing the family's deep ties to the industry. While the intensity of the relationship drama may have subsided, the reality of his large, complex family remains a part of his ongoing life story. He maintains a level of privacy, allowing his work to speak for itself. But the history of his personal life remains a subject of fascination, forever linked to the public persona he crafted. Clint Eastwood's place in cinematic history is secure. He is an icon who has shaped the Western and action genres, and a director whose later work has cemented his reputation as a serious artist. He remains, in many ways, the man of mystery he often portrayed on screen, a figure of quiet strength and independent will. The mystery of how could Clint Eastwood sleep with 8 actors a night is, ultimately, easily solved by acknowledging its literal impossibility. It is a classic example of Hollywood hyperbole and gossip run wild. But the fact that such a rumor could gain traction speaks volumes about the public's fascination with his private life and the reality that fueled it. The true solution is not a scandalous single night, but the understanding of his genuine, complex romantic history, a history marked by multiple long-term relationships, several of which overlapped, and involving women from various backgrounds, including notable actresses and individuals within the entertainment industry, resulting in 8 children with 6 different mothers over a career spanning more than 6 decades. This reality, while far from the crude sensationalism of the headline, is itself a compelling story. It reveals a side of the controlled, stoic screen legend that is much more complicated, illustrating the human being behind the myth. It underscores that even the most private and seemingly reserved figures in Hollywood often have personal lives that are anything but simple, filled with relationships, families, and choices that exist far from the controlled environment of the film set. The mystery was a lie, but the complex personal history it distorted is undeniably true, revealing that the life of the King Eastwood contained multitudes, not just on screen, but in the rich, intricate tapestry of his relationships off-screen as well.